Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Can you guys hear me? Yes, okay, good.
Yes.
So feel free at any time to come off mute and um ask me questions. Um, I will periodically check the chat box, but if you want to just unmute yourself and come on, that is fine too. I don't mind being interrupted. Um, Basically what this call is going to do is we're going to just kind of go over rotations and overlaps and kind of the rules for that. I know we had some very beginner coaches at our clinic and the concept of rotations and setting up serve receives and stuff was um foreign to them. So hopefully we can go through it a little bit slower here. I can answer any questions that you have and we can get a better understanding of it. And I think it will lead really nicely into our last clinic session, which is we're going to do a lot of 6-on-6 and rotations and stuff in our last clinic. So I think they'll go really well together. So what I have set up here on the screen, hopefully I'm sharing the correct screen. Can you guys see a volleyball court with the positions on it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So right now, what I have on the court, what I have set up is what would be rotation one. So rotation one is when the setter is in the serving position or right back. So we're setting up our rotations with the setter in rotation one and right back, which means that the right side is opposite. And then kind of going in the service order, setter, your outside one, your middle two, your right side, then into the back row, your outside two, and your middle one. This is the correct way to set up a rotation. So when you're writing your lineup, which we're gonna get to in a little bit, this is the order that it needs to be in, and I'm gonna show you how to kind of translate this to writing a lineup for a game. Um, so just to talk about our libero for a second. So if you're gonna use a libero, they have to come in behind the 10-foot line. A lot of newer coaches, or even older coaches like me, but with kids that don't really understand the rules, kind of get in trouble because their middle, who usually is the one coming for the libero, comes to the sub line, and then the libero comes here and they switch here, and that's not correct. If you're going to play your libero, the middle needs to run outside the court behind the 10-foot line, and the libero needs to come in behind the 10-foot line. And now that we have our libero on the court for our middle, and I've kind of color coded it for right now, the green are the front row players and the red are the back row players. We can talk about overlaps. So overlaps are anybody that's to the right or left of you and anyone that's to the back or front of you. For example, if I am the setter, my only two overlaps are the libero, that doesn't, yeah, it does say libero, and my outside. Okay, I cannot be closer to the net than the outside, and I cannot be closer to the sideline before the ball is served to the libero. Overlaps only are considered before the ball is served. Once the ball is served, our front row and back row duties remain, but the overlapping component of it doesn't exist anymore. The overlaps only matter before the serve. So my suggestion for newer coaches is to set up your serve receive in this way, where Your setter is going to kind of come back into the sideline a little bit. Your OH1 will drop straight back and pass and serve receive. And then you've got your right side hitter out here to attack. You've got your middle to attack, and you've got your outside to attack on the right side. And I would likely leave my outside hitter on the right side. A lot of teams like to have them switch. I think it's kind of unnecessary and can be a time management problem if things are happening quickly. So unless, you know, this kid really isn't capable of hitting outside, I would have my outside stay on the right and my right side stay on the outside as the play continues. And so from here, we go to serve receive, you know, they serve the ball at us, we play it out, someone attacks it. To go to defense, we would go, you know, outside would come front row, your setters and right back. Depending on where you have your libero play, I'm going to leave the libero in middle back for right now. Everybody's already in their defensive positions here in this serve receive. So we can kind of finish the rally in this position here. There are some alternate ways to set up serve receive here. One being if you stack your outside on the left side, and that looks like this, and I'm gonna show you how to be careful with your overlaps here. So your libero is gonna come over. We have to make sure that our setter is closer to this sideline than our libero. Our OH2 is gonna come to the middle. And our outside one is going to come all the way to the left. But they have an overlap here, so this would not be legal. The middle two has to be closer to the sideline than the outside. So our right side's got to come all the way to the sideline. Our middle two's got to come all the way to the sideline here, so that the order is still right side, middle two, OH1. What if you don't have a setter? How would you do serve receive then? Sorry, this is a question that came up in the chat box. You have to have a setter. So someone is going to be, should be designated to take the second ball on your team. And if you're doing something like everybody sets, I don't know if KG, this is just initials, so I'm not sure who it is. If you want to elaborate on the question.
Yes, with everyone is setting. So just basically saying you don't have one set setter, but you have basically everyone on the whole court setting.
Okay, I'll show you.
People that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, are you gonna have a front row person set or a back row person set?
Front row person.
Okay. Yep, we can do that.
Thank you so
all right.
much.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so this would be your other kind of option in serve receive. It's a little bit trickier because your right side has to then transition all the way across the court to hit right side, so that your middle can come hit middle after the ball is served, and then your outside comes out here and hits outside. And then to play defense, your hitters have to or your defenders have to rotate back around to the defensive positions. But that is another option for serve receive in rotation 1. Let's see. I'm just gonna make a copy really quick. This. So if these are just kind of like, I'm just gonna say player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4, player 5, and player 6. So if you're going to run a service where this person is the setter in every rotation, everybody's setting and we're just setting from middle front, I think your serve receive gets pretty easy then. You can just leave these back 3 players and serve receive. These players might pull off the net a little bit. I wouldn't have them be, you know, further back than a step in front of the 10-foot line for short balls. You still want your 3 back row serve receivers to be the primary passers. So they still need to be taking the majority of the balls, but I would just leave, this person who's setting player 5 right now up in the front of the court, and my serve receive consists of players 3, 2, and 1. And we'll come back to this screen as we rotate through. All right, so this is rotation 1. Are there any questions about rotation 1?
Yeah, Rose, I had a question. And excuse the noise. I'm at a restaurant while my car's getting worked on the shop next door. So if you hear any background noise, that's it. Would you ever push up OH1 and the setter and then shift the libero OH2 and then push back the right side?
You could, if you're right. I would say I would only do that if my right side passer was better than my outside passer.
All right.
So what he's talking about is you could potentially rotate this way. You still have to mind this overlap here. The libero cannot be closer to the sideline than the setter, but we can shift the libero over our outside 2 to the middle and our right side back into serve receive here. And I would only do this if my right side were a better passer than my OH1. If my OH1 were a better passer, then I would bring them back. Or, and hopefully your setter is one of the more athletic kids on your team or the most athletic kid on your team. But if your setter is just not athletic enough or quick enough to make this move from back here, this would be a better option, getting them closer to where they need to be. But yeah, this is just kind of like a special cases, which I've done it before. It's not something I haven't done. It's just a special cases thing. Any other questions about rotation 1? Okay. So if we go to this, which most of you should have in your email, and if you don't have it in an email or a printout, it is in this coach's clinic document right here where I linked in the rotations. So this is how you would read it for me. This is the squiggly line is the net. I use this like 6 kind of triangle thing to show the rotations. This line here always signifies who's back row and front row. So if you're behind the line, you're back row. If you're in front of the line, you're front row. So rotation 1, setter, outside 1. Oh, that's not right. Yeah, it is right. Middle 1, middle 2, right side, outside 2 is the same thing that is on this here. This is just on the court, but if you're looking at my picture here, it's the same thing. It's just not using the court. It's just using this little quick notation that I like to use. And then down here is the serve receive, the first serve receive we talked about, where the outside pulls back. The front row players here underlined, pulls back. The setter is behind the OH1, which is the only concerning overlap here. You can actually, some people have misconceptions about this. The OH1 in this rotation can be behind the libero. Not that you would ever have them purposely like serve receive behind the libero, but they can be as long as the setter is behind them. The front and back overlap does not, of the OH1, is not anything to do with the libero. So the only overlap in this rotation, if you're setting it up this way, is your OH1 and your setter.
I have a quick question,
Mhm.
Rose. Can the OH1 be behind the OH2 though, when they're being pulled back? Don't they have to be in front of the OH2?
Nope, it doesn't
No?
matter. The OH2 has no overlap consideration with the OH1 at all.
Oh, okay.
Yep, it's only the person that's directly in front or behind you and directly to the side of you.
Okay.
Um,
Thank you.
mhm. All right. So let's rotate to rotation 2. So our OH2 is going to come front row. Our libero is going to go here. Our setter goes to middle back. Our OH1 is now in the serving position. M2, right side. Let me change my colors here. All right, so we have our base rotation for rotation 2. The setter is in middle back in rotation 2. So we're always kind of looking at our setter overlaps to see what we have here. Our setter cannot be closer to the net than the right side. He or she also needs to be in between the libero and the OH1. So the only way and the best way to make this rotation work is to push the setter up. Basically getting to stand right where you want your setter to stand to receive, the set where the perfect pass is going to be. The libero gets to move to the middle of the court, and the OH2 is going to pop back here into serve receive. And you have a couple different attacking options here, depending on, what your offense looks like. The right side could stay and attack in the middle. The middle could stay back here and attack on the right side, and the outside comes out. You could have these two players switch. So after the ball is served, the middle kind of swings across and the right side pops back here, so that now the right side's hitting on the right and the middle's hitting in the middle. The outside is still hitting outside. You're probably in this rotation not going to take the outside out of hitting on the outside. You could run them on a 2, but that's getting a little bit advanced, and only if this kid is like really efficient out of the middle and we were very good passers is that something that I would consider doing. This is probably what most people do, is they bring the middle hitter across. I'll show you again. So the middle is stacked back here near the 10-foot line. They shuffle to the middle as the ball is being served. As the ball is being served, the right side comes back here. And so now everybody is hitting in their, I guess, natural hitting positions: outside, middle, right side. And then when we go to defense, outside, middle, right side, setter, and outside libero gets to stay. And you can play your libero left back. I'm leaving them in the middle, but these two players could be switched. There's nothing that says that they can't be. Are there any questions about rotation 2?
Hey Rose, show me that asterisk again that you just showed previous slide where you, instead of using the court, because it's easier probably to use the asterisk than to use the court. Yes, yes.
Yep. So this is rotation
got
two, setters in middle back.
I just was looking at, just make sure that I had that little asterisk thing right. So I got you.
Yep.
Oh, that'll work.
Hey, Rose, I do have a question.
Hmm.
With the, or if you can just remind me or us the rules on when, players go to transition, from overlapping, so that they don't get, out of rotation. What's the rule in that? Is it when the server serves the ball, that's when they can go? Can the players run to their position when the server starts the run up?
Technically, the serve has to be touched. So, you know, some refs are tighter than others. Some refs, if the ball is, you know, being tossed and it's in the air and you start to go, it's not a big deal. You know, I have some setters that, let's go back to rotation one. So let's make this guy green. And this guy red.
Blue,
Oops.
blue.
So in rotation one, I have some setters that will start further back because they want to be in motion as like the ball is being served. So they'll start to run as the ball is being tossed. And then by the time they're making contact, they're still technically in rotation behind the OH1, but then they already have some momentum that is carrying them forward into the setter position. But technically the ball is supposed to be touched by the server. But like I said, some refs are more strict on how they want to call it. Most refs, if they think you're leaving too early, most refs will tell you, hey coach, your player's leaving early before they'll call it. And at least in my experience, that's what it's been. All right, so if we pop over here to this one, so if we go to rotation 2 here, that's gonna put player 3 front row. We'll make them green. Green. Player 4 is gonna be here. Player 5 is gonna come here. Player 6
Should be blue. Blue.
is here. Just get crazy with the colors right now. And so now your serve receive, you know, has changed where you can leave it. Player 2, 1, and 6 are in serve receive, and player 3, 4, and 5 are not, and player 4 is setting. Let's just say like player 6 cannot serve receive. They're not a good serve receiver. They're really bad. There's nothing preventing you from pulling back player 5 into serve receive and hiding player 6. The overlap here for, you know, player 5 is player 4 and player 6. So player 5 can come back here, and as long as player 6 is further back in the court, there's no overlap. And honestly, you could do it on both sides if you wanted. You know, if either of these two players are not very good passers, you could pull them back and take them out. You do have some flexibility in that. If you don't want player 1 to serve receive, we can do, so player 1 has an overlap with player 2 and player 6. They have to be in between those two players. So you could pull player 1 here, push player 6 over to the middle. Player 1 is still in between them. And now player 5 can come back and they just have to be a little bit in front of player 6. Like just a teeny bit, nothing super noticeable. Because player 6 still is their front and back overlap, but this is still a legal rotation. Player 2, player 1, player 6, it's still in the correct order. Player 5 is slightly in front of player 6, so the front to back overlap there is fine. There any questions about that? Everybody sets rotation. All right. Well, let's go to rotation 3. And we need to rotate twice now because I put this back in rotation 1. So our OH1 is going to be back row. Our middle is going to be back row. And our setter is going to be here. Our OH2 is going to come front row. Our right side here. We got to talk about this libero thing that's happening. So in rotation 3, our middle comes back row. So you have kind of two options here. This middle has to come back in. Okay, and they need to come back in behind the 10-foot line. So we come in behind the 10-foot line. But you have a decision if middle 2 is going to serve or if the libero is going to serve. Okay, so let's just say for right now, our libero is going to serve. Libero gets to stay on. She doesn't have to come off. And our middle 2 is just going to run behind the 10-foot line, outside the sideline and come off. And our libero gets to stay on and serve. Libero can only serve in one position. So if she serves in rotation 3, she can only serve in rotation 3. You can't in the middle of a game decide middle 1 is serving bad and you want to give middle 2 a chance to serve. So now your libero is going to serve for middle 1. You can't do that. You can do it in the next set, but in that game, if the libero serves for middle 2, she has to serve for middle 2 every time in that game.
Can you sub the middle out instead of putting libero in and have someone else serve, or does it has to be the libero serving?
You can sub.
Okay.
So yeah, we could have a DS.
So if you had someone just sub in to serve, but you want to put the libero back in after, does the middle have to sub back in and then the libero go in?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so let's say we rotated here. Our middle is now, she's back row. And we want this DS to sub. The libero comes off behind the 10-foot line. The libero never goes to the sub line. So the libero comes off behind the 10-foot line. The middle goes to the sub line. And the DS meets her there. They sub. The middle comes off. And now the DS goes to serve. When the DS is done serving, you have two options. The libero can just straight libero for the DS. But if you want the middle to come back in rotation 6, then you're going to have to sub then. So most of the time, so we don't forget to sub, after the DS is done serving, she comes back to the line. The middle comes back to the line. They sub. The DS comes off. The middle has to do this where they kind of run back here and then come out behind the 10-foot line. It's just like a little circle. Whoop. And then the libero comes in from behind the 10-foot line and resumes their libero position.
Okay. Thank you. I have one other question with the libero.
Yeah.
So if the libero comes off for the middle, can they go back, can they go in for like the, say the OH1, like needs a break on defense? Can
Yeah.
that? Okay,
Mhm. Yeah, so if you left this DS in, we didn't sub her. The libero has to sit out for 1 point.
okay,
So
that's,
if the DS serves 1 ball and she aces it, even though we haven't rotated or done anything else, you can put the libero in here. That's not a problem. And then leave your DS on.
so
Yep.
basically libero has to go back in for whatever person, or go back in or out for whatever person they came in and out with for at least 1 point before you can put them somewhere else.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. For serve receive purposes, let's put our libero back in. All right, so here we are. We got to try to figure out a serve receive now with some overlapping issues here. This is probably rotation 3 is probably the kind of messier one for overlaps. Because we have a bunch of different things to consider here. So the setter has to be further off the net than the middle. Okay, we're also going to have our outside pass here. So the outside and the middle also have an overlap where the middle needs to be closest to the sideline. So the way this works is we have our middle come as close to the sideline as they can here. We have our setter push up. Okay, she needs to be further off the net than the middle. She also has to be closer to this sideline than the OH1. The OH2 is no consideration of overlap with the setter. Okay, we're gonna move her, but the setter and the OH2 don't have any overlapping concerns here. The only people concerned with overlapping the setter are the middle one and the OH1. So we kind of have this corner here where we're further off the net than the middle, we're still closer to the sideline than the OH1, and our setter can stand right in this corner that it makes. Our OH2 overlap concerns are the middle one and the OH1. So we can pull our OH2 back so that they're slightly in front of the OH1. So our overlap here is good because they're still a little bit closer to the net than the OH1. And because the middle is standing on the sideline, the middle is still closer to the sideline than the OH2. So our overlaps here are okay. We are not illegal. And our right side is just out here, not concerned about overlapping anybody. After the ball is served, our OH2 goes to be a hitter. Our middle one comes back here to be a hitter. Our setter does a little bit of footwork to get to hopefully where the ball is being passed. And our right side gets to hit on the right side. So everybody's gets to hit in their natural position. Does anybody need me to do that one more time from the beginning?
Yes, yes, I would. So the
Okay.
OH2 has to be in front of the OH1 in this rotation, like a step ahead of when they're pulled back.
Yes.
How
Mhm.
come in rotation 1, it's that didn't matter? Like if the outside hitter was not in front of,
Because they're not front and back of each other. So this is rotation 1. They're
But-
not front and
OH
back of each other.
but
But in
isn't OH1
rotation
front
three-
row and OH2 back row? In that one?
In rotation 1?
Yeah.
Yes. OH1 is front row and OH2 is back row, but they're not directly
Oh,
front
okay.
and back.
I get you.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
But in
thank you.
rotation 3, they are directly front and back.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. All right, so here is this is our base rotation, rotation 3, the setter's in left back. Her overlap concerns are middle one and OH1. She has to be closer to the left sideline than OH1 and further off the net than the middle one. So if we move our middle, 1 step off the net all the way to the sideline, let me kind of show you. There's this line here that she can't cross. This my thing doesn't want to be like useful. That's as straight as it's gonna get. There's this line here that she can't cross, and then coming off the OH1, there's a line here she can't cross. So our setter can essentially go stand in this corner, and she's not overlapping the middle one, and she's not overlapping the OH1. And then our outside, their overlaps are OH1 and M1. So they can come back here. And as long as they're just a little bit in front of OH1, they're not overlapped. And as long as the middle one is just a little bit closer to the sideline, they're not overlapped. And then after the ball is served, the OH2 gets to go be a hitter outside. The middle one transitions to the middle. The setter goes to target. And the right side pops back to attack on the right side. And then when we attack the ball over and we go to defense, everybody's kind of already in a good spot to go to defense. Setter's got to go here. OH is going here, and Libero's going here. Are there any questions about rotation 3?
I have one quick one, Rose. Have you ever done it where I think the middle would have hit outside just for that first rotation, and then the outside hitter would have hit middle, instead of them crisscrossing, and like after they hit, then switch, or is that just too much? I think if that makes sense.
Are you having your outside pass and left back in that one? Or are you having them, are you having them come straight back and serve receive?
Good question. I think it would be right side. If right side could come back.
Okay, so yeah, if this right side kid is a good passer,
Mhm.
then you can pop the right side back. It makes life a little bit harder for your setter. Because if your right side comes back into serve receive, then your serve receive shifts to the left. So your setter's got to come up and be closer to the sideline than your OH1. Where before the OH1 was in the middle, so the setter got to be
Okay.
closer.
Mhm.
But if you can't pass, then if you need this right side to pass, then that is not a bad option. I still probably would have my OH2 come as close this way as I could. We're still not overlapped here. And I'd probably still have my OH2 hit outside and my middle hit middle. But you could have them stay and hit middle, hit outside, and OH hit middle. I mean, you could. It wouldn't. It just
Okay.
depends on the personnel.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so we are going to rotation 4 now. That means that our setter is coming front row. And our right side is coming back row. And then we have some decisions to make here. Are we running a 5-1? Are we running a 6-2? I think I got it back in.
And so if we're running a 6-2, I'm gonna rename these people, because if we're running a 6-2, that means that this person becomes our right side number 2, and this person becomes our setter number 2. And that either means that you have subbed and you have a brand new person playing right side, or a brand new person setting, or they're the same people, but now their responsibilities are different, right? And either way, it's still a 6-2. If your setter then is always back row, this is a 6-2. And essentially rotations 1 through 3 repeat themselves. With right side 2 and setter 2, and kind of flip-flopped, but our serve receive still is the setter comes back, the OH2 pulls back, has to be slightly in front of the libero, the setter has to be closer to the sideline than the libero, and those are our overlaps. And we talked about some different variations where you could stack the OH2 all the way over, pull these 2 hitters all the way to the sideline. We even talked about the right side person pushing the setter up and having the right side number 2 pull back and pass. You know, all of these options are good. You're not in violation of overlapping, but they're also the same as rotation 1, just different people. So I'm not going to go through rotations 4, 5, and 6 with a 6-2, because it's the same, they're the same as a 1, 2, and 3 in a 6-2. We're going to switch these people back to our right side and our setter. And we're going to do a 5-1, which is a little bit different because now our setter is front row. Which means we have 2 hitters instead of 3. So we have a couple options here. If your right side is a really good passer, then we can leave serve receive just like this. OH1, libero, right side. We don't have to change anything. We would still want to get our hitters close to their natural positions where they're going to hit. I would stack it like this. So I would have my OH2 be the furthest off the net, and then I would have my setter be in front of my OH2, and then my middle. That's just a preference thing. The OH2 goes this way, gets out of the way. After the ball is served, they come out here. The setter takes off faster than everybody else and gets to the target, and the middle transitions to the middle and hits middle. And we're still in, you know, we're not in overlap trouble setting it up like this, because my OH2 is closest to the sideline, my middle is in the middle, and my setter is closest to the left sideline. If our right side can't pass, or you don't want them to pass, I would say traditionally we don't let this person pass. They come back here. You do have to worry about this overlap. The right side does need to be closer to the sideline than the libero. The OH1 shifts to the middle. The OH2 comes to pass. And the OH2, even though they're all the way over here, their overlap is the right side for front and back. So just going to show you that one more time. There, the OH2's overlap for front and back, for the person they have to be closer to the net then, is the right side. So as long as the right side is hanging out back here, they're not going to overlap the right side, and they can be further back than the OH1 and the libero. Okay, I mean, I'd have them 3 straight across, but if they wound up drifting back further, it would not be an overlap violation because their front and back overlap is the right side. We do have to pull our middle and our setter to the sideline, so that the order is still setter, middle, OH2.
So Rose, this is Mick. Is your order of operations on this usually best 3 passers and then where the setter gets moved? Because sometimes, you know, it's like this, like you don't want to have the setter all the way pushed over, but if you got to get the,
Yeah, give me just 1 second. So yes, my order of operations is usually to get the 3 best passers and serve receive first.
and you try to optimize who you want in the middle? Like in 6?
No,
No, like you don't try to optimize the libero. Okay.
nope. I just get the 3 best in serve receive, and I really try to make it work so that it's always my 2 outsides and my libero, so that we're not having to change it. You know, like I think if you have your 2 outsides and your libero are your 3 best passers, then there's never a question of who's serve receiving, right?
Yeah.
It's like those 3 players are always the ones that are serve receiving. So there's never a question of it. You're never looking around like, is it my turn to serve receive? Am I the one doing it? So, you know, if my right side was my best passer, I'd be wondering why she can't play outside. You know, is there a reason that she's not playing outside? And maybe there is, like maybe she's left-handed and she's way better on the left, and I mean on the right side, and you really need her there, and but she's also your best passer, so you work her into serve receive when you can. There's really only one rotation if you're running a 5-1 where the right side can't serve receive. It's rotation 2. All the other rotations, the right side could serve receive if you're running a 5-1. So in this rotation, if you've pulled your outside 2 back, their front row, the ball is served. We attack it, they shuffle out, be a hitter, the setter takes off again, and the middle comes to the middle and does their thing in the middle. And then when we go to defense, we go to defense here. And go this way. And to kind of piggyback off what Mick said about trying to prioritize getting my 3 best passers and serve receive, which is absolutely what I try to do. I also try to have my best defender and middle back. So for right now, I'm putting the libero there, but if my right side is better defender, my right side might be playing middle back and my libero is playing right back, or left back and my OH1's playing right back. This person I really do try to also get to be my best defender.
Rose, I had a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just remind me on the rules on overlap with an adjacent player? Is it any part of the foot crosses any part of the other person's foot?
No, they can be overlapped. The players themselves can be overlapped. Like my foot can be next to your foot like this, but as long
Okay.
as my toe is out further than your toe, we're legal.
Okay.
Yeah. You're allowed, the body parts are allowed to be overlapped. The person just has to be either a little bit further back or a little bit, you know, more to the sideline, by just a little bit. There's no, I haven't read the rule book in its entirety in a long time, But I don't think there's any measurement specification for like a specific distance that they have to be, 2 inches or something. I don't think it even says anything that specific.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's go back to our base positions. So this is rotation 4, and did I pull it up? Doesn't look like I did. So if I've got my little thing here, this is rotation 4, which we just talked about. So setters in left front. We stacked our right side behind. I pulled my OH2 back. And that means that my setter and my middle have to come all the way to the sideline. All right, so now we're rotating again. Our right side's gonna come here. Our libero is gonna come to the left. You're gonna go front row. You're gonna go back row. And these last 2 rotations get pretty easy. Rotations 5 and 6, if you're running a 5-1, get pretty easy. So if we like these 3 people serve receiving, we can leave them if we like it. We don't have to change it. You don't have to pull anyone back. And then our hitters are actually in a pretty good position to hit in their natural positions too. Our setter can basically stand in target where we want the ball passed. We do have to, look at our overlaps a little, mostly with the setter in the middle, but we usually pull our middle back close to the 10-foot line so that when the ball is served, there may be 1 or 2 shuffles to the middle of the court so that then they can attack. Or if we like our middle hitting on the right side, they can just, your first play out of serve receive can be an outside set and a right side set. And that might be pretty difficult for some teams to try to block. They're the sets that are the 2 farthest apart. And if these are 2 good hitters, which they're your OH1 and your M1, so I would hope they're good hitters for you, then that might be a good option to run it pin to pin instead of bringing the middle back into the middle. If we want our OH1 to pass, our right side comes back. She needs to make sure that she's in between the libero and the OH2. We move our libero to the middle and our OH pops back. Okay. Our outside does have an overlap here with the libero, front to back. So we do have to pay a little bit of attention here that our OH1 is slightly in front of the libero. And then it's the same thing. OH can shuffle out and attack. Setter's right where they need to be. Middle can either stay back here and hit right side or take 2 shuffles over and hit in the middle. This one's pretty simple. We go to defense. OH2's got to hustle a little bit to get over here if she's playing left back, but it's not too hard of a play to make. And your right side comes right back. Any questions about rotation 5? All right, let's look at rotation 6. Our right side was middle. What? Arrow was here, which is here. So this is a middle rotation, a middle coming back row again, which if you're using a libero, we got to pay attention to. Because the libero is either serving for this middle or she's not. With the middle too, we talked about both ways, the libero serving for her, not serving for her, and having that DS sub come either way. Let's just say this time the libero's not gonna serve. So the libero is gonna come off. Everybody's gonna rotate. This middle is gonna come back and serve. This middle is going to come on behind the 10-foot line and come up to the front row. So now both of our middles are on the court at this time because our libero's off and our middle is serving. And I'm just realizing I didn't really go over kind of how to stand when you're serving. So if at the end of this, if you want me to go over in more detail than what I'm about to say, just let me know. And I don't have anything scheduled for the rest of the day. I'm happy to stay on and go over it in more detail. But if we're serving, so right now, if the middle is off the court here serving to set up, I let my middle start in the middle of the court and then everybody moves around them. So my middle is here getting ready to block. My OH1 is standing just to the right of her, and my setter is out here getting ready to block. I make everybody move around my middle. So anytime we are serving, anybody is serving, my middle gets to stand in the middle of the court, and then everybody moves around her if they need to. Like my setter's already in the correct position here, so she doesn't need to move. But the OH1 is in the middle, so she has to start to the right of the M2 and then pop over once the ball is served. Boop, she pops over and becomes a blocker. All right, middle loses her serve. So she comes off behind the 10-foot line. And the libero comes on. And now we are in rotation 6, serve receive. And this is our base position. So rotation 6, our setter can stand and target where we want the ball to be passed. If we are okay with this serve receive, we can leave it. I would still pull my left side over to the left side of the court and have my middle stand just closer to the sideline than them, so that my outside is in a good, easy position to transition outside and hit. My middle too is also not far from the middle of the court and can come and attack in the middle. But it sets up pretty easy if you're gonna leave these people here. If we want our outside to pass, my right side pops back and my OH1 pops back. Does anybody know who the OH1 front and back overlap is? You remember from when I had it set up in the base position?
Is it OH2?
Yes, the OH2. Good. So these are their base positions. So the front and back overlap for OH1 is OH2. So we're going to pull the right side back. But what this OH1 really needs to worry about is OH2 and being slightly in front of them. And then also just making sure that the middle is just a little bit closer to the sideline than your OH1. Setter gets to stand and target. Ball is served. Our OH gets to go be a hitter. Our middle comes to the middle. And we are playing volleyball. We go to defense. Everybody goes to their defensive positions. Right side's got the longest trek here if they're going to play right back. All the way over to right back. And that's all of the rotations. And this is obviously like, I would say, well, not maybe not obviously, this is the most common way to set up rotations and serve receives for keeping it kind of as simple as you can. The two outsides and the libero passing every single time. If you have some, you know, weird, not weird, but just different thing that you're doing, maybe your middles are your two best passers and your libero comes for someone else, and you want me to write out a serve receive that's, you know, exactly meets exactly your needs for your personnel, I'm happy to do that. I consider myself sometimes like a wizard of making things work because I've had some funky ways having to do things before based on personnel. So this is certainly not like the way that it has to be. It's just the most common, especially if you have those two outsides and a libero that can play those roles for you. But certainly if you, you know, get past your tryouts or whatever and you are like, wow, I really need these kids serve receiving and I need it to work this way, please reach out to me and ask if you are having trouble figuring out how to make a serve receive work. And I will, you know, do my best to give you something that's functional and legal so that you're not getting called for overlaps. The last thing I wanted to go over was lineups. So you are going to have to submit a lineup for your games. And if you haven't ever done that before, it can be intimidating. So high school lineups are way more intimidating to me than club lineups. This is a high school lineup sheet. You have all of your players listed here and their numbers. And then you have your lineup goes here. Some of it's self-explanatory, your team name, games, your libero jersey number goes here. And then you want to check if you're serving or if you're receiving first. The thing that caught me up when I first started coaching high school, because it's different than club, is this is your first server. So if, for example, if
What's that?
this is my lineup, let me just throw some numbers on here.
It's like you're making a star. 5.
And
10, 11, 12,
if this is the net, if this is how I want my players to start on the court, I want 10 and right back, and then 7, 5, 13, 12, and 11. And we are receiving. That didn't go where I'm supposed to. So if we're receiving, and this is how I want them to start on the court, my first server is going to be 7, not 10. So I would write the lineup in here.
First or 111.
The lineup would
Three.
be. I'm gonna try to make this work. I think these are gonna be too big. And this was like, I don't know, like
VR.
mind blowing to me when I first started coaching high school because I'd never seen it done this way. My lineup would be 7 because that's going to be my first server if we're receiving. 5, 13. So I'm going around. This is the order of the servers. 12, 11, and then 10 is going to be my last server.
7. That's the same thing, but it went.
Shh, please stop talking. Does everybody see that? And then the next game, let's just say I want to use the same lineup, but this time I'm serving. Because it's going to flip-flop. You're going to, you know, flip-flop every game. Then my lineup then is going to be 10 is my first server. Because I'm serving first this game. 7, 5, 13, 12, 11. Even though it's the same, they're starting the same at the beginning of the game. The lineup is that you're writing down is different because in high school, you put your first server at the top. So if you're receiving, it's the person that's in right front. And if you're serving, it's the person that's in right back. And then you write in the rest of the numbers counterclockwise. Are there any questions about that?
I don't have a question about that. I mean, the first time I put a lineup in, I totally put it in wrong. Also put it in
Yeah.
one spot one. But I have a question about subs, if that's okay.
Mhm.
First of all, how many subs a game do you typically get? And then second of all, I guess I've been giving it different answers onto if like say I were to like you have the numbers up there 13. I need to sub 13 out and I put like someone on the bench, like say 8 in, but then 8's not doing so hot, so I want to put like number 6 in. Is that interchangeable? I can put as many people in there. That's just the only spot that they can play in the whole game, or do I have to like sub back in? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, do I have to like put the same person back in to sub out, or can I put as many people in that position as long as that's the only position I put in there?
Correct. The end of what you said is correct. So if you want to take 7 out and put 3 in, you can do that. 3 is
Okay.
not doing any better, so you want to put 8 in. Great, you can do that. You could continue on and put in number 6 if you wanted. What you can't do is, right, 6 is in now, 7, 3, and 8 are on the bench. You can't put, you can't go here to number 11 and now sub in number 8.
Okay. But like I could
Can't
put like
do that.
I could put like 7 back in if I wanted to, but as long as they're all in that same position. And
Correct,
for
yes.
they play in that spot. Once they're in there, they can only be in that spot.
Yep, you could put 7 back in. That wouldn't be a problem. Any of these people now can play in this position, but they can only play in that position.
Okay. And then how many is it 18 or 21 subs you get a game?
It's definitely not 21. How many subs high school volleyball? That's a good question. 18.
Okay. And then I have one other random question.
Mm-hmm.
For serving, because I feel like I've tried to Google this and found different answers too. Like, how long do you get to serve? How many seconds?
I believe it's 8. At least for club, it's 8.
Okay. And you can drop the ball once in your rotation, like let the ball drop once in your in like that rotation. Is that correct?
I feel like varsity you're not allowed to drop, but JV you can drop once.
Okay.
This says 10 seconds. This says 8 seconds. Olympic volleyball has 8 seconds, so That's definitely
Okay.
what club is, 8 seconds.
Okay.
High school wouldn't be less than that. If
Okay.
anything, high school would be more.
Okay.
And the dropping the ball question, it's probably league by league. So if you're a public high school in Virginia versus a private high school in Virginia, it's probably league by league, I would guess, for
Okay.
that rule. And I want to say that at varsity you're not allowed to drop the ball.
Okay. Thank you.
I know in club after 14s you're not allowed to drop the ball anymore. Are there any other questions? I didn't come back to this rotation with the setter in the middle, but it kind of it stays the same, you know, as you rotate through the game. If this person's always going to play setter, and you can pop back any players that you want, kind of how I showed you, keeping in mind those overlaps, and take any of these passers out of serve receive. No matter what rotation you're in, they all look the same, just with different people. But if you have any specific questions about it, more than happy to go through and answer, and or any of these rotations or anything in general, if anybody has any questions.
Hey, Rose, I got just a couple quick questions. So
Mhm.
basically, for the most part, you can put the players anywhere you want. You just got to keep the rule of the front and back and players to either side. Is that correct?
I mean, when you say anywhere you want, I would not, I would set it up in this way of rotation 1. So I would not have a middle. If I'm in rotation 1 with my setter, I would not have a middle here. The serve receives won't work correctly. It won't be as easy to avoid overlaps if you put a middle here and a middle here. So in my opinion, it does need to go in this order where it's setter, outside middle, right side, outside middle. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
Yes, what I was saying is if you've got a player that you want to, move back or move out of the way, you can
Oh,
do
yes.
whatever, as long as you keep the front back rule and if you've got a player on either side, those rules. If you're on the sideline, then you can only one player to worry about. That would be correct. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, my second question is, and you kind of mentioned it, but I wrote it down. You talked about the libero, and of course that was new to me last year or whatever. But anyway, the libero, she can only, if she serves for middle 2, she can only serve for middle 2. That's correct, right?
Yes.
Now she can come in for the middle 1, but she can't serve for the middle 1
Correct.
or whoever. Actually, it would be whoever that position would be.
Correct.
And then you said something which I don't know, and that's what I'm asking. You said that the libero you can substitute the libero for somebody else as long as you go with 1 point. That was
Yes.
and at 1 point, can you explain that again?
Yes. So we go back to my little diagram here. Let's say like our right side serving, and our libero's not, or we, for whatever reason, we want to put our middle back in for the libero, right? So now the libero's off, and our right side serving. The libero, if the score is 3-3, when the libero comes off, she can't then come right back on for the OH2. The right side has to serve a ball so that the score then changes 4-3, or whichever way, and then the libero can come back on for any of these players, any of the back row players. But there has to be 1 point in between. The only time that the libero gets to stay on and not have a point in between is when let's rotate one more. So the only time she gets to stay on consecutively, coming in and out for people, is when this rotation happens. So if she's already on for the middle here, for this middle, she came on. And she's going to serve for middle 2. So they rotate. She is technically now in for the middle 2 and not the middle 1 anymore, but she doesn't have to come off. She can come back here and serve. Middle 2 goes off. Middle 1 comes on. This is not right because I have 2 outsides front row. I don't know where I messed up. I need a right side.
Yeah, no, I got you. I
Up
got you. Yeah,
That is the only time that there doesn't need to be a point in between her coming on and off for someone. Any other time, there has to be a point in between. Even if it's for the same person.
if we use that scenario that you got right there, you want the middle, it doesn't matter. Let's do the middle 2 to serve. So the middle 2 serves, libero comes out. They score a point. She can come back in for OH1
Yes,
for the outside hitter 1.
yes. But I wouldn't recommend it unless you're going to leave your middle 2 back row. Because when your middle 2 loses or serve and you have to go to serve receive, now your middle 2 has to serve
Right.
receive for at least a point.
Yeah, and that's and you don't I mean you want to keep that integrity because there's a reason why you have that libero there, and there's a reason why you're using that libero to substitute middle 2 or middle 1, whichever. I got you. Okay.
Right. So it's not typically done that way. But
right. Well, you just mentioned it. I always thought that libero had to serve for the 1 player, which would be middle 2, and then substitute accordingly the next time for middle 1, and that's the only relationship they could have. But I guess not.
No, yeah, they can go. Yeah, libero means free roamer, and that's what they are. They're a free roamer. They can go for anybody in the back row at any time. And to be clear, the libero doesn't have to serve. Both middles could serve. Or whoever you have the libero going in for, they don't have to serve at all. And in fact, if you get as high as international volleyball, like if you watch the Olympics this year, you won't be seeing a libero serve because they're not allowed to. So.
Very awesome. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Last chance for questions. I'm always available if something comes up later, and you have a question, or like I said, you get a group of kids that doesn't fit this formula and you want help with them, please, please, please reach out and I'm happy to help. But thanks for visiting me today, and I hope you have great rest of your week, and I'll see most of you on Sunday.
Thank you so much. This was great. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
welcome.
Rose.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.